Google co-founder Larry Page is doing everything he can to avoid appearing in the Epstein-JP Morgan Chase lawsuit. A federal judge authorized a subpoena for the U.S. government of the Virgin Islands to obtain documents that connect Larry Page to Jeffrey Epstein. But nobody can find Larry. A process server has tried to track him down at 3 separate houses, but they can't find him. Missing billionaires right in the middle of damning litigation investigating the Epstein case. Very interesting. Unfortunately, though, for Larry, the judge authorized a different solution to get him served, which means it's probably going to happen soon. That's going to make the subpoena valid. That's going to make him have to appear. And so let's take a look at the order that came in from the court. Here it is, filed in the Southern District of New York. We're familiar with this court. It is Government Islands of the Virgin Islands against JP Morgan Chase. And the government is asking specifically for the judge to allow them to alternatively serve Larry Page, the co-founder of Google. They cannot find him to give him a subpoena. The U.S. government from the Virgin Islands cannot get him. So they're asking the judge, Your Honor, here we are. We're asking the court to provide us with permission to give alternative service upon Larry Page from Google. Why does he want to avoid this so much? The government brought this civil action against JP Morgan Chase as part of its effort to protect public safety and to hold those accountable who facilitated in the trafficking enterprise of Jeffrey Epstein. The government's investigation has revealed that JP Morgan knowingly, recklessly, and unlawfully provided and pulled the levers through which Epstein's recruiters and victims were paid and was indispensable to the operation and the concealment of the Epstein trafficking enterprise. Saying financial institutions can connect or choke human trafficking networks. We already covered many filings here where JP Morgan was acting as the bank, and saying that enforcement actions and efforts by attorneys generals throughout the United States stop this thing from happening. But government investigations revealed that JP Morgan, the big bank, financially profited from the deposits made by Epstein and Epstein-controlled entities located in the Virgin Islands, and from the business opportunities referred to JP Morgan by Epstein and his co-conspirators in exchange for its known facilitation and the participation in Epstein's trafficking venture. And so upon information and belief, Judge, the government says Larry Page, the co-founder and co-owner of Alphabet, Google, YouTube, all of them, is a high net worth individual who Epstein may have referred or attempted to refer to JP Morgan. Why doesn't JP Morgan just help the Google guy? Mr. Page announced in 2019 he'd be stepping down from Google, but would remain actively involved. And they got that documented. The government has issued a subpoena to Mr. Page, which we will look at, and the government made good faith attempts to obtain an address for Larry Page, including hiring an investigative firm to search public record databases for possible addresses. We're going to look at Mimi Liu's declaration. She said, I tried to go find Larry Page. We got multiple of his houses. Our process server attempted service at the addresses that Mimi Liu identified in her investigation, but we learned that the addresses were not valid for Mr. Page. They're not even real. And we've got those affidavits that we will read. This court long has recognized a different rule called Rule 45 of the Federal Rules of Procedure, which allows alternative service. If you can't go and specifically say, boom, you're subpoenaed, can we try something else? We are allowed to do it when we can't find somebody. Give us permission to use certified mail so we can just send it via mail. The court has permitted this before, where a party's repeated attempts at personal service have failed. Both circumstances are present here, Judge. The government has made good faith efforts to obtain an address for Mr. Page and to serve a subpoena upon him personally. Moreover, the fact discovery end date is soon. In these circumstances, the court should, in the interest of securing just and expeditious resolution, authorize our government to provide service on Mr. Page by serving Mr. Page upon Alphabet's registered agent. Can we just give it to Google and have Google take it? Judge, the judge said, granted. No opposition is what I think he says. And so therefore, it is ordered. signed off by the judge, May 8th, 2023, U.S. District Judge. And so that means that the Virgin Islands government is going to send this over to Alphabet's registered agent, and this is the subpoena that they're going to be getting. It's going to look something like this. They've been trying to give this to old Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, for a long time here. They said previously, you are commanded to produce at the date and time the following materials. Exhibit A, you are commanded by this date, April 11th, signed by Linda Singer, the lawyer who is investigating this, to give us the documents. Now, this is the proof of service form that is accompanying every subpoena, and you'll notice that this is not filled out. Why is that? Well, they couldn't serve him. They couldn't find Larry Page, couldn't get him at all. In fact, before we read through the rest of this document, which is what the subpoena is demanding, let's take a look at how much they tried to get him. This is from the investigative law firm, or the firm trying to track down Larry Page. The declaration from Mimi Liu. She says, I am an attorney with Motley Rice, counsel for the government. Motley Rice hired the firm Gryphon Strategies to search public records databases for Larry Page, and Motley Rice's process servers attempted services at 2 addresses that we identified, but Mr. Page did not live there. Mimi Liu signed off on this document the 4th day of May in Washington. So couldn't get him at those 2 addresses, and that's not where it stopped. There was more. Here is another exhibit. They tried to get him here too from proof of service. Summons was for Larry Page, received by this process server. This is the process server attempting to conduct service. His name is Douglas Henry, and he took this one somewhere in Palo Alto, California. He said, all right, well, I went to the address. After attempting service in Palo Alto, I returned the summons unexecuted because unknown. Couldn't find him. Here's the other one. Andre tried to serve this one in San Jose, California. Couldn't get him. Unknown. Can't find the guy. Where is Larry Page? Very interesting here. Now, this is the subpoena. This is what they want. They're defining various terms for him, and he's going to be getting this very soon because it's now going directly to his agent. The judge gave permission. They say, here are your instructions, Larry, and lawyers. You've got a lot of them, so they're going to be able to follow this. I'm sure of it. Here's what we want. All documents between you and JP Morgan about Epstein and Epstein's role with your accounts. Oh man, that must hurt for him so bad. That sucks for him. He's like, oh man, are you serious? That's the first item? All documents reflecting any communications between you and Epstein about your relationship with JP Morgan. All communications between you, Epstein, and JP Morgan. All documents about fees you paid to Epstein, and all documents about Epstein's involvement in human trafficking and his procurement of girls or women for commercial purposes. Oh man, I'm sure he doesn't want to talk about any of that. So that subpoena has some good, juicy meat to it. And now it's going to be delivered to Larry Page's agent. Not to Larry Page, doesn't have to go to him. Just has to go to his agent because the judge said alternative service is granted, which means Page's lawyers are going to start digging into it. And we'll see how this case unfolds. Of course, there will be more updates and we will continue to cover them.